All right, so this right here is the OnePlus 13r, and I've been using it as my main device for the last 2 months now. I actually bought this when it came out back in January of 2025. So I've had it in my arsenal for quite a while, and I used it for about, I think, a month, 2 months when it first came out, and I was switching between the OnePlus 13 and S25 Ultra, but then ultimately life got busy and I stuck with the S25 Ultra for the majority of the year. But now I'm back on this because I wanted to do a final review on this device after owning it for over a year and finally using it for, I would say, a total of 2 to 4 months. And personally, this is definitely the definition of a good bang for the buck and what you would consider a flagship killer. And overall, I'm fairly impressed with what this is able to offer. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So first, let's talk about this design. I gotta take this case off because I usually always use this case. And honestly, I feel like you have to because this phone is very slippery. Don't get me wrong, it looks very sleek and very cool just because it's very simplistic. You know, you got this aluminum frame and then a back glass that has a nice soft touch to it. Don't get me wrong, it feels very comfortable in the hand. It's such a soft feeling device. And not to mention the sides are flat, which allows you to decently grip the phone. But if you just hold it like that, it's gonna slip out of your hand. And not to mention, it's gonna slip out of your pockets as well. It is a big phone in the hand as well. I think it's around 6.7 something inches in terms of the screen size. So it is a big phone, but it doesn't feel big. And that's because it's fairly light. And I think it's just because the materials it uses, not the most premium materials. So it is on the lighter side compared to flagship phones. I think it's around 206 grams, which is fairly light compared to a flagship. The display is a Corning Gorilla Glass 7i, I believe, which is an older display in terms of protection. And it's primarily used, I think, in mid-range devices, and it does have a screen protector on it right now that came pre-installed, which is a plastic one, and it hasn't bubbled up or come off at all since I've had it and used it, which is good. So I'm gonna keep it on for as long as I can. But like I said, I do use a case to protect the device itself. But even though I tried to protect it as much as I could, I actually did get a couple of scuffs on the phone itself. I think I dropped it heavily once when I was trying to be funny and run around, and it fell out of my pocket because even with the case, I will say it is a little bit slippery. This case is not the most protective. I will talk a little bit about it here in a second, but it's still causing a couple scuffs on the phone itself. But otherwise, no major dents or scratches or anything like that. And the phone is IP65 water and dust resistant rated, so not the most waterproof phone. So I think it can survive like water jets from any direction, but it can't really be submerged. So if you use your device a lot underwater for some reason, then this won't be one you to consider. I do use mine in the shower a lot, whether it's watching YouTube videos or just listening to music, and it's been perfectly fine up to now. And the phone does have a camera bump that is a circular design. This is something that they've been using for at least since the OnePlus 11 that I can remember. And they stopped this year or this previous year with the OnePlus 15 and 15R. Now it's a square design, but the circular design, it looks pretty modern still in my opinion, and it does still cause a bit of wobble when it's on a flat surface, and that's where potentially a case comes in. But my case still has a bit of a camera bump. It does protect the camera bump itself, but it still can cause a little bit of wobble. But the case I got here, it's some random one, a cheap one, I think, from Amazon. It really is not the best in terms of protection, and it's also not the grippiest either. It's still pretty slippery, but hey, I mean, it adds a little bit of something. I think the most important thing too is that it adds MagSafe or magnets to the phone itself so that I can actually use some of the accessories that I have. Like I keep bringing this Moft one in. I use this a lot. I also use my pop socket, which is right over here. I use this a lot as well. So I like the idea of having magnets, and so that's why I usually get a case so I can get the magnets. And that's primarily the only thing that's cool about this case. Otherwise, this case is not the greatest. It is clear and see-through, sort of, a little bit. You can see a little bit of the black, but it is a black see-through, so black on black, you know. Yeah, but otherwise, not the most notable case, but just in case you're looking for one, I don't really recommend it, but there's really not many options out there, actually. I hate that small budget devices, or mid-range devices typically don't get as many case options, especially not from the big manufacturers. It's usually a bunch of cheap ones from like Amazon or maybe AliExpress or Temu and stuff like that. But let's talk about the hardware. First up, you got your power button and your volume rocker on your right-hand side. Power button right below the volume rocker, which is nice because it's a nice position to click it. The buttons themselves do feel a little on the cheaper side compared to the flagship devices, but nothing really notable, especially if you end up putting a case on them. At the bottom, you'll find your USB-C port. It is USB-C 2.0, which means you'll get up to 480 megabits per second. I think that's around 60 megabytes per second in terms of transfer speeds. And it took me around 15 seconds to transfer 1 minute of a 1080p video, which was 122 megabytes. So it is on the slower side compared to, say, something like a USB 3.1, I think, or 3.1 Gen 1 or Gen 2, whatever is the latest. So it is a bit slower compared to flagship devices, but if you're not going to be transferring a lot of files, then you'll be fine. I do end up transferring a lot of files from this when I'm vlogging with this, or for example, when I was capturing and moving files for photos and videos for samples for this video. It took like 3 minutes, 4 minutes for some photos to transfer and also for some videos to transfer. So again, if you're gonna be doing a lot of transferring, it's gonna be noticeable and kind of an inconvenience. I mean, 4 minutes is not a huge deal to me, but it's not as fast compared to the newer flagship phones. Now this phone still also retains the alert slider, which you have here on the left-hand side. And it's usually one of those things that you set and forget it, but it is convenient here and there for me. Sometimes I'll take my watch off to take a shower or let it charge for a little bit. And sometimes I'll have to turn the alert slider to sound mode. That way I can actually hear sound from my phone. That way I can get notifications, because I'm so used to just wearing my watch to get notifications that when I have it off, I feel naked. Like, I don't know what's going on with the world. So at least the sounds remind me that there's notifications coming into my phone. And then you have the IR blaster at the top here for controlling infrared controlled devices. So for example, the biggest one is the TV. I will say I use it maybe nowadays once a month. I used to use it a little bit more when I used to always lose the controller, but now I have a tendency of not losing the controller for my TV. So I have not had to rely on this, but there's a couple times where I lost the controller and I was like, where the hell is it? And I have my S25 Ultra and I was like, damn, man, do I wish I had that OnePlus phone right now, because I could have used this as my phone. It is cool to have and convenient to have too. So I don't see a reason why they should get rid of it. So OnePlus don't get rid of it. I'm not sure the 15R got rid of it. I hope not, but just keep it because it's a convenient thing. And the speakers here, they're good. They're not amazing, but they're also not bad. I feel like for me, when I get it to 100% or anywhere more than like 90 or more than 80% sometimes, it can sound a bit tinny. It feels like the highs or the vocals get really tinny to me. I usually like to set it around 70 to 80% max, just because it's well balanced there. Otherwise, the highs overtake the lows. And then the haptics on this phone, OnePlus honestly is typically known for pretty good haptics, and they don't slouch on here. For a mid-range phone, it does feel pretty good. You don't have as many options and settings as you do on the other phones, but for here, I think they feel all right. I personally like to set it on the lower side just because on the higher side, it does feel a little bit too aggressive, but on the lower side, it feels nice and crisp. And in terms of biometrics, you do have your under display fingerprint sensor, which is an optical one, and then you do have your facial recognition with the front camera, and it pretty much works just like any other device, where the front camera can suffer and just miss you and not recognize you whenever your lighting is not great. So lower conditions, or if you're at a weird angle, it doesn't always recognize you, but for the most part, in ideal conditions, it's gonna recognize you pretty much 99% of the time. And then the fingerprint sensor, the only time I've ever had an issue with it is when my fingers are a little wet or there's dirt or something on them. Otherwise, I literally have no issues with it. It's actually just as fast as an ultrasonic one, if not faster potentially. I do think the OnePlus 13R upgraded to an ultrasonic, but for me, I think it's perfectly fine. I do think the placement could be a little bit higher up in terms of the fingerprint sensor because it is on the lower side though. And I do use my phone with Visible here in the US and I have no issues with it. I honestly have not had anything notable to mention about it. Like phone calls come in just fine. I haven't had any issues with drop calls or weird connections where I can't hear them for a second, where they're lagging or something like that. And service is just as fast, 5G, sometimes ultra wideband, depending on where I'm at. Wi-Fi speeds are perfectly fine. So overall, I've had no issues in terms of my phone service on this. Now let's talk about this display. It is a 6.78-inch AMOLED 14, not even 1440p. I think it's like around 1080p actually. It's 1264 by 2780 with a 450 ppi density. It's good. It's a small mobile phone. You're gonna be fine with that size. I know some phones I think go up a little bit higher, but I think the quality here is pretty much normal and good enough. And you get anywhere around 1600 nits for high brightness mode. I think I noted for around 4500 for peak. I never get that, so it doesn't really matter to me. I think it's only when you're watching like HDR videos and you have brightness set to max and you're outdoors potentially. Really, you're going to be fine with the brightness levels of this. I think the phone gets plenty bright enough whether you're indoors or outdoors. I will say I think the ambient sensor here isn't the best. I think sometimes it struggles to really brighten the screen when you need it to be brighter, or even dim the screen when you need it to be dimmer because you're in a not so bright environment. So I think the ambient light sensor could be a bit better, but otherwise you could just manually adjust it yourself. And something too is that if you do get this phone, I do believe it comes in vivid mode by default. Turned on. If you like your colors punchy and vibrant, then by all means leave it in vivid, but I personally like it a little bit more dull, more natural looking, so I always switch it to natural. You do have two other pro modes if you want to play with those as well, but personally I just always stick to natural. And then something I do find confusing with the OnePlus devices, it's not just the OnePlus 13R, but specifically because I'm using the OnePlus 13R right now, I'm going to talk about it, is the eye care. Like, it has eye care bedtime mode and eye care regular mode, and so you can set that to adaptive or smart, I believe it's what it's called, and then or custom, and then you can adjust it yourself. I like to set mine at a certain percentage and then set it so that it only turns on when the sun sets, and then when the sun rises it turns off, but you can't mix and match that. So in order to do that, you have to set a manual schedule, which I think is kind of bizarre and kind of annoying. If you want it to actually auto turn on for sunset and sunrise, then you have to just set it to bedtime mode and the phone will automatically do it for you. But you can't set how much blue light is being actually removed. It's the phone doing it for you, and it's annoying. Why can't you let me have that control? It just let me do it. Then on top of that, they have their smart mode, which is supposed to do something similar to bedtime mode, but throughout the day. So I could just set it to smart mode, but I don't want it to do that during the day. So I don't know, I just think it's confusing the way they have their options set up. Then they also have another mode, adaptive tone, which basically changes the screen temperature as well, but this does it to match the ambient lighting around you so that it has more accurate colors. But you can't have that turned on if you have the eye care turned on. So it's confusing. I don't like the way they have their settings set up. Maybe there's a reason behind it and someone can explain it to me, but it honestly really confusing me because all the other phones usually have both enabled and you can adjust it as you want, but this one, it's just weird for some reason. I don't know why Auction OS and OnePlus is weird. Some other cool things with the display is that you do have the glove mode, which allows you to have gloves on and still be able to use your display. I do find that it works best with fabric gloves than it does with like synthetic gloves, but it's a nice feature to have, especially in the wintertime here when it's almost over now, but when I had gloves on and I had to use my phone, I could still use my phone normally. Another thing too is that they have a screen attention setting for the display, where if you look at the display, it won't actually turn the display off, it'll turn it back on, and it's very, very sensitive. Sometimes I'll have the phone to the side and then I see that it starts to turn off. I like just glance at it and it quickly turns on. Like, it's so sensitive. Some other devices that I have, like my tablets, those, if I see the device dimming down, I'm like trying to do the same thing. I'm like looking at it to try and get it to turn back on, but it doesn't even recognize me and it just turns off and it's like, bye. So I like that it's sensitive, but I also find it very annoying sometimes when I want it to turn off, but then it thinks I'm looking at it, or I see it in my peripheral vision and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then it turns this display back on. And it does go up to 120 Hertz for the screen refresh rate. And you can set the device to set it to auto so that it auto changes the refresh rate based on what you're doing. But personally, I like to set it to high, and then you get access to the app specific settings where you can specifically select the refresh rate for each app. The reason I like doing this is because for some reason in Pokemon Go, it gets defaulted to 60 hertz. So if you set it to auto, it's always going to be 60 hertz. So that really annoys me. So I always have to set it to high so that way I can get 120 hertz on that app specifically. And then you do have pretty minimum intrusions, like the bezels, they're pretty small. You do have a slightly thick corners, but otherwise not anything to bother you too much. And the camera cutout, very small as well. You do, however, have to watch out for the dynamic island that shows up in the software though. Whenever I think listening to music and stuff, it does show up. So it does take up a little bit of your screen, but otherwise the camera cutout itself doesn't get in the way. Overall though, in terms of the quality of the display, I think it's very good. I mean, probably not the best in terms of what's available out there. That's something that's going to be a theme here, but I think it's really good in terms of just watching content on YouTube, the occasional movie, and also catching up on your memories on photos and stuff like that. Now in terms of performance, this is where you really get your best bang for the buck. Sure, you get a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which was announced in 2023 and used on flagship phones from 2024, but 2024 was only 2 years ago, and it's still a very competent CPU. It pretty much handles everything that I throw at it. Of course, if you want the highest settings on some apps and like games, they may not allow you to do the higher settings with the best frame rate as well, but honestly, for me, this is more than enough of power for me. And on top of that, you also get 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM on here, and then anywhere from 256 up to 512 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 storage. So whatever I throw at it in terms of my everyday apps, from listening to music, watching YouTube, checking my bank accounts, texting, Snapchat, buying stuff online, whatever I'm doing, this phone isn't gonna have any issues with my everyday apps. When I want a game, these days I'm only playing Pokemon Go and then Minecraft. And again, I think I can just do whatever I want on there as well. The occasional lag glitch here, but nothing terrible. And on Minecraft, you are able to set it to the high visuals mode, but keep in mind that sometimes when your items break or when you're switching between your items, there is like a small lag sometimes here and there. But when you set it to fancy mode, this thing runs like there's no tomorrow. It's like a little mini console in your hand, which is awesome. Overall, all that to say is that performance on here is where you're going to see this shine, because you're going to be so surprised of how well this performs, especially for the price that you paid. Now, in terms of the software, this is of course running Oxygen OS 16 to be specific as of the recording of this video, with Android 16. So it has been updated at least once since it last came out, because it was running Android 15 with Oxygen OS 15. So there were a couple of changes, and honestly, I don't understand what they're doing over there, because Oxygen OS is just a half-baked version of iOS. It's not a full committed version to anything. It's just all over the place in my opinion. The biggest thing for me is the fact that they're trying to copy the liquid glass. Like, why are you guys trying to do it? You're just half-assing it in my opinion. It just doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look good, and it's not applied to your whole UI. There are settings that do have it and then settings that don't have it, and I don't like it. I don't get why you're doing that. Now, another complaint that I have is the notifications. It still, for some reason, does not show my notifications on the lock screen after I've opened the phone. Once they come in, it'll show up, but once I unlock the phone and go into the phone itself, and then I close the phone and then come back, those notifications are no longer going to display on the lock screen. That means that sometimes I may miss notifications if I don't look up in the corner and see the icons of the notifications I have. Also, please add something to hold down here, or a quick toggle or something where I can quickly get to these settings to customize the lock screen, because otherwise I have to go and search for it in the settings itself. Now the home screen though, I feel like they have a lot of fun stuff to be able to customize your phone here, and it's really cool. A lot of the stuff is coming over to other software experiences as well, which is really nice, like with One UI. And some of my favorites is those folders. Like, I love that you can enlarge some folders, and you can also have these mini folders that are vertical and horizontal across your screen, and then have the regular apps as well. I think it's really cool because you can customize your home screen differently to everyone else. The only thing that's missing here is probably stackable widgets, but even then, I know when I have that on when I have that on One UI and on iOS, I don't really use them. They did, however, change a little bit of the menu where you're actually editing the settings for your home screen. And some of the things that they moved was like putting the icons inside of wallpaper and style, and then also moving the animation selector for when you're swiping between your pages. They put that into the home screen settings section as well. So that's also not just freely in the bottom of the quick settings that you can change for your home screen. It's okay. I understand why you guys moved it, but it's just annoying that after I left the OnePlus and then came back and it's different now, I'm like, where the heck do I change that now? So it threw me off for a second, but I totally get why you did that. And the quick sense of notifications, why are you guys copying iOS again? I don't like that they initially force you to have it split because it just throws me off. I don't like having my notifications on one side and then my quick settings on one side. I'm so used to having everything together, and plus I like it like that because it's one swipe down and you get access to everything, versus if I swipe on one side, it's only gonna give me half of one thing. I want the whole experience that I'm used to. However, you can always set it back to how it was before, which is exactly what I did. And then they also did improve, I'm not sure when, might have been with option 15, I didn't notice this, is that now when you click on any of the tiles here, it actually just turns it on and off. At one point when I was using OnePlus phones, you would click on it and it would open up another window to then give you access to additional settings for whatever menu item you clicked. But now it's just all universal where you click one and it turns it on or off. Maybe there's one or two that it will actually take you to an app specifically. But if you do want additional settings for some of these, there is like a little arrow pointing down that you can click on and it'll open up like a little window with additional quick settings. Now let's talk about the app screen. Another complaint that I have, I'm sorry, it's just they keep copying iOS and the execution is not always perfect. So they added the category section. So you have all in categories. All like you're used to, you have all your apps, and actually a couple of things before I get to the bad things about categories. All, I like that whenever you are scrolling on the side here, you see a bunch of letters, the alphabetical letters, and you can grab it and then go directly to a set of letters or an alphabetical letter, and then it shows you those apps and it stays with just those apps specifically. So that means that you can interact with these apps. You can grab it, hold it, take it to your home screen, or hold down and open up little quick settings, or just click on it and go straight to the app. I like that because of other devices. I know that if you use that filter or that scroll of the letters to go to the specific letter that you want to, it'll just drop you there and that's it. And you still have to look through your apps like, okay, where did G start or where did F start? Versus this, it just turns everything else off for you and just shows you those specific apps. Another thing too is that when you're searching, it does something similar where once your search is submitted, then you can interact with those apps without you only allowing to click on it, because you can hold down and take it to your home screen again or hold down for additional quick settings. So primarily I always just use the all, but the categories, I want to love categories because it organizes your apps. It puts them into folders. But these are folders that you have no control over because it's all based off whatever data I think or tag that the developer and Google itself is tagging these apps as. And sometimes they just completely get it wrong. Like for example, lifestyle. Why the hell is Sheets and Lifestyle? I guess Sheets and Lifestyle? I don't know, maybe it is, but it puts it in there when I think it should be either in travel or potentially even shopping and food. So I don't know, it's confusing. I don't get why it does that. Oh, there's another one, Wise. Wise is literally shopping and food, so that should be shopping and food, but it's an other. So I think it's not OnePlus's fault, but because the Google tagging system or whatever is used to categorize this is not great, OnePlus's categories suffers, just like iOS's suffers too, because it's just as annoying. I think get rid of categories and just allow me to make folders inside of all of the apps. And then I do want to mention the sidebar because I think it's one of the coolest features that OS has to offer. It's very similar to One UI's Edge bar, where you can drag it over and then move apps into it. The reason I like using this is for multitasking. You can drop a calculator. That's usually what I end up doing the most. It's just dropping a floating calculator so I can do some calculations here and there. But sometimes I use it for splitting the screen. So you can grab an app and drag it over so you can have like YouTube and then Reddit split on the screen. I will say that sometimes the multitasking experience on Android as a whole is very buggy and not the greatest. And I know everyone's sick of AI, and I am too. And in fact, I actually don't even use any of the AI features that OS has to offer. I think there's some in here, but I've never really used them. So only thing I use is Gemini really in terms of my AI. So yeah, if there is AI in here, I'm not really using it. And real quick with the ecosystem, you do have the OnePlus watches, the buds, and the tablets, but I only have the watch. This actually came free, which was a nice pre-order bonus, the Watch 2R. It's a decent watch. It has everything that I need in a watch, like health features, time, a decent watch face, music, health metrics, sleep metrics, timers, calling on it. So it has the things that I need on it, but the ecosystem here, the connection between the phone and the watch is not the best, especially when you come from like Samsung and especially like Apple. It's just frustrating sometimes because the biggest one for me at the minimum is that they should have included or made it possible to sync the modes. So bedtime mode and work mode, focus mode, and if there's a theater mode or something, they're not really synced, which means that if you turn one on your watch, it's not going to turn on your phone. The only thing that they did sync, which is relatively new, I think, because I don't remember this being the same experience I had a couple months ago or like almost a year ago, which is that timers and alarms actually do sync. So if you set a timer or an alarm on your phone, it'll actually ring on your watch, which is nice. In terms of updates though, this phone is supposed to get 4 years total of major OS updates, but it's already been a year as I've mentioned. So you're down to 3 more. And I think it's still plenty of life left with the OnePlus 13R if you were to buy it right now in 2026. As far as the cameras, right now I'm using the OnePlus 13R to show you guys exactly what you're going to see. If I was to replace my main Sony camera with the OnePlus 13R's front-facing camera, and I mean, from the preview, it looks good, right? And I'm seeing it on my phone, so it looks pretty well detailed and good quality. But I'm sure as soon as I look at this video from the monitor itself or from the laptop itself, it's gonna look a little bit probably distorted compared to the quality of the 4K camera, just because of course this is 1080p because the front facing can only do 1080p, which is unfortunate, but it's enough to get you by in terms of capturing moments and vlogs with the intention that you're going to view them on your phone. At the point that you're going to watch them back on something bigger, you're going to notice the dip in quality and the amount of noise because of the lack of quality. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, in real world practice though, you're not always going to get these decent, ideal lighting conditions that I'm using right now that I usually use for recording my videos. Now, in the real world, once those conditions go down, you're gonna notice a good dip in the quality. Not only in the color, I feel like the color, it can just be all over the place depending on the lighting, but also in just the quality itself, because you can see the amount of noise that's introduced when the light goes down or when there's a lot of movement. It's just, there's a lot of noise being factored in there to make up for it, and then and all the movement that you may have from swaying back and forth. So it's not the best in terms of overall quality, but if you want to use it for just capturing moments here and there, I wouldn't get this for the camera obviously, but for the front facing, it looks not too bad. And in terms of photos for the front-facing camera, similar idea. I mean, for the moments, for capturing quick selfies here and there, I'm okay with it. I don't really take too many selfies myself. So when I do, I feel like this phone does a decent job. And especially, again, with decent lighting conditions, it doesn't look too bad. And I noticed that it does have pretty good bokeh as well. Now, the only bad thing is that if you try to capture a photo of the foreground and the background's going to be out of focus. So just be mindful of that. And then once lighting conditions do go down, similar idea to how the video was, it does get noisy. Movement, it's not able to capture it because sometimes it'll introduce this motion blur, so which is kind of normal and expected with a lot of phones, so not too surprising, but definitely something to keep in mind. And the color accuracy, again, if the lighting is not great, it's going to be all over the place. Sometimes I feel like it's a little too oversaturated, etc., and it just doesn't look the prettiest, but it can get the job done for capturing a memory. Not really the best for photography and for accuracy, but more or less just for like, hey, I want to remember this, and then just capture a quick photo. Okay, so now we're looking at the back-facing cameras. You do have 3 cameras, that being an ultra-wide, a wide, and a telephoto. And when it comes to video first, right now I'm recording in 4K 30. but that's only because I'm using the main lens. As soon as you want to use the ultra wide or the telephoto, you gotta switch to 1080p because otherwise you can't use them. So if you're strictly going to be using the main camera, which I mean is the best quality camera for sure, so it makes sense, then you'll be able to use 4K. But if you want to be able to zoom out, zoom in, and get better quality, then you'll want to switch to 1080p. And I say better quality because you can zoom in when you're in 4K, but it's going to look very, very bad. It's not going to look that great because it's not a dedicated telephoto camera. And when you switch to 1080p, sure, the quality goes down, but I feel like it actually looks better when you're zooming in. Now, of course, it's not the best telephoto out there by any means, but I think it's an improvement than zooming in digitally with the 4K camera. Overall though, I shoot all my videos in 1080p on this phone just because of that, because I like to have the ability and versatility of being able to zoom out and zoom in when I need to. Of course, like I said, not the best telephoto and definitely not the best ultra wide either, especially because as you're zooming in, if the conditions, I said this with the front facing, if the conditions aren't great in terms of lighting, the color's gonna be all over the place. I feel like the ultra wide can sometimes get oversaturated and then it goes to normal looking with the main, and then you're gonna zoom in again and it can sometimes look a little too dark or a little bit too oversaturated as well. So I feel like the colors get shifted like crazy whenever the lighting is not great. But in normal lighting conditions, I would say it looks pretty good. It's not gonna wow you. It's not going to like be the best phone out there for video capture. But like I said, I think it's enough to capture those memories and moments. And just saying, hey, I got the video of this may not be the best, may not win you an award, but it's still something. Sometimes people say the best camera is the one in your pocket because it's the one that will actually capture the memory. If you're trying to become a photographer, cinematographer, probably not the best. I'm sure cinematographers could probably make the best out of this video, but it's not the best in terms of overall quality and whatnot. In terms of photos, similar idea as the videos. It's not the greatest when it comes to the lighting being off. Like if you have any kind of weird lighting conditions, whether it's cloudy, late nights, early mornings, bright environments, it can be a bit shifty. Like zooming in from the ultra wide to the main to the telephoto, it can get quite shocking because sometimes you're seeing an oversaturated photo here and it's going to a regular main and it's zooming in and then you're seeing a saturated photo again or just a dull photo. It's annoying that it does shift colors a lot because you can't rely on the ultra wide to get you the best photo or the telephoto to get you the best photo. Typically, if you want the best photo, you gotta stick to that main lens. So while you have the versatility of being able to zoom in and zoom out, it's not always going to be the best in terms of the color and accuracy and quality to use those additional lenses. That's one of the hardest things that I think that these phone manufacturers can try to accomplish with these mid-range slash budget devices, however you want to see it. And not to mention the telephoto also for some reason looks like AI photos, because I think it's just the over processing that it's doing to overcompensate for the fact that the quality is not going to be great. So it's going to try and fix it to make it look nice, but it doesn't end up looking good. Overall, I would say that the cameras tend to overcompensate with color since the quality ain't gonna be that great when you take the photo. So it tries to add more saturation over here, brighten the lights over here, darken the areas over here, and it just doesn't really land the mark because it just throws the whole photo off, in my opinion. Oh, and then the audio, this is exactly what you're going to sound like or get from the OnePlus 13R. I will say in louder environments, it captures everything. So when you're out vlogging or capturing stuff, you're going to not only get whatever you're recording right next to the camera, but it does pick up pretty much everything around it. So it doesn't do a great job of isolating your voice if that's what you're looking for. But I mean, for me, it's not a huge deal because I do enjoy hearing the ambient sound and the environment around me. So if something funny happens, I want to be able to capture that. But this is what the audio sounds like from the phone itself. And I want to throw in a quick Snapchat video. There is going to be a little bit of compression with Snap because with Snapchat, the camera quality isn't going to be exact as it is with the camera app. So if you're big on social media, definitely avoid this phone because I don't even use it with Instagram, but at least with Snapchat, Photos look garbage, videos can look garbage. It really looks like the cliche Android device or Android camera photo quality and video quality that you expect, that people always meme on. So yeah, if social media is really important to you, definitely avoid this phone, in my opinion. But otherwise, for me, I'm very casual with it. I say whatever. So whatever the quality is, what is whatever it gets me. And here's front facing as well, just to show you a little bit more. Right now, like I said, conditions are pretty decent because of the light, but trust me, as soon as the lighting conditions aren't ideal, it's gonna look pretty bad. So right now, it looks okay, but any other lighting condition is going to look pretty rough. But overall, the cameras are okay. I mean, they'll get the job done in terms of, like I said multiple times already, capturing the memory, but it ain't gonna get you anything in terms of looking professional. Okay, in terms of battery life, battery here is such a breath of fresh air, especially when I came from the S25 Ultra. I already talked about my experience there, and I was really frustrated with that phone in terms of the battery life. But here, I get anywhere from 20 to like 30, 32 hours of battery life. Usually just under 24 hours. Typically, I think it's like on 22. Sometimes I think my lowest was like 16, but that was like sometimes the highest for the S25 Ultra. So this is really nice in terms of battery life. I rarely have to worry about battery on here. It's only really if you get down to like the last 10% where you're like, oh, okay, I really gotta plug this in soon. But otherwise, throughout the day, I rarely have to plug it in, if at all. And then with screen on time, I think I get anywhere from 4 to 6 depending on the day. So the less screen on time, usually the more overall it lasts. And then if you do have to plug in, it does come with 80 watts wire charging with their SuperVOOC technology. So you have to use the proprietary charger and then also their cable. And it takes just around an hour, if not just under an hour, which is just the same as it was with the S25 Ultra. And I think I forgot to mention it. It is a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, so 1,000 milliamp hours more than the S25 Ultra. It's not a silicon carbon battery either. Oh, and it doesn't have wireless charging in case that's important to you. I never use wireless charging, so it's not a loss for me. So overall, would I recommend the phone? Honestly, yeah, I still think in 2026, it's still a really good phone to consider. I think I bought it for around $477. I got $100 off with a trade-in, I think, which was a recycle. So I just had to recycle my device, but I never did. But you got $100 off. I think it retails for $600 brand new, but nowadays you can find it either used, renewed, refurbished, whatever, for around $430. So that's pretty close to what I bought it new. So I definitely think I got a pretty good deal with it because I got the phone at a little bit of a discount and then also a free watch. So that's a pretty good deal if you ask me. So I think what I paid for it was more than fair, and $600, a little pricey, I will say. So definitely try and get this at a cheaper price. But otherwise, I definitely feel like this is the best bang for the buck that you can get and pretty close to a flagship killer in my opinion. Sure, like I said, cameras, not the best, not the greatest, but if you want just raw performance and overall fun experience with the software as well, it can be annoying just because of the things I've tried in the past and what I'm used to. It's still a fun software. It's just some things that annoy me, a lot of things that annoy me, but it's still a good device overall. So would I recommend it? Yes, I definitely think you could still consider this phone in 2026. So with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this video was helpful. Peace. All right, now I'm gonna switch to the OnePlus 13. Finally, I've been excited to try this one out, so keep an eye out for this next review.